Hey, this is Trav here, and this podcast relies on the good people who help support this podcast on Patreon, and I'd like to give a big thank you to Bill, Bree, Brendan, Grant, Lisa, Mog, Dan, and Paula. Thank you so much, and here's the show. Hey, welcome to episode 178 of Tales from the Mind Boat, the slow-moving, exotic boat ride inside the questionable areas of my mind. This is Trav Nash speaking, and thank you very much for listening to this episode. I really do appreciate it. Today's episode is all about help and how hard it is sometimes to actually say it out loud, to come to terms with the fact that all of us need it at some point in time, and perhaps a different way and a different perspective of looking at things and looking after those around us. So it's a good show, and all we need to do is sit back, relax, think about the coming months ahead as we set sail. Sometime in 1965, John Lennon penned one of the two of his most proudest songs. One of them was Strawberry Fields, and the other was Help, the title track from the album with the same name. Fanatical Beatle fans have a habit of sometimes reading too much into the lyrics and finding subliminal message about the supposed death of Paul McCartney and his obscure clone that replaced him, or references to LSD, and even a message about a coming race war. Help, on the other hand, was clear and to the point. It was Lennon getting everything he ever wanted and not coping very well and dealing with the toll that it takes on somebody. "I was fat and depressed and I was crying out for help," said Lennon when he talked to Playboy magazine on the inspiration for the song, as if the song's cry for help wasn't already clear. The magic of the Beatles is they can take a heavily emotionally charged song like Help and still maintain their pop-like structure that can be enjoyed by anyone of ears and the love of good music. And I'm sure for many it was just another hit Beatles song, and couldn't really understand that it was Lennon crying out for help. Maybe no one could understand that perhaps the Beatles were not dealing well with being the most popular entity on the planet, who really were bigger than Jesus at the time. There is a strange belief that not coping with life and its constant twists and turns is a sign of weakness or failure. Viewing others from the outside in can never really reveal what is going on inside someone's mind, especially when we are taught to just grin and bear it, to not trouble others with our problems. Things will get better if we just wait it out. Your time will come, just wait a while. And it's unfortunate that most support people can give is to repeat catchphrases that sound more like product slogans to sell more vitamin supplements, or perhaps the new iPhone that has a slightly smaller screen than the last. We are told to be strong and not to let it get to you, to man up or suck it up, princess, without even thinking how this could even fix a problem that someone is currently dealing with. Pretending there is no problem only creates more problems. Internal conflict within yourself, to sit quietly and let it fester, to make you anxious of worry, can physically and emotionally make you sick, and it's draining to try and keep up the facade that everything is fine. No one seems to be immune to it, and we fool ourselves that life is a straight line, and yesterday will just overlap the next. We let our guard down and think change happens to others, but any moment can change the course of our lives, and at some point that needs to be dealt with. It needs to be processed emotionally, and then a plan needs to be put into motion as to try and adjust to this change for the better. It frustrates me when past generations try to pass on their flawed coping mechanisms. They think any kind of emotional reaction other than rage and aggression is a threat to masculinity, a genetic mutation of the male gene. It reveals the question of their sexuality and exposes that you are lesser human, according to their eyes. Ironically, it's these people who suffer and need the most help. They push so much down and compact it firmly to make more room for more of their problems that it's a ticking time bomb that will eventually trickle out in the worst possible way. Their advice is a defense mechanism against their own imperfect sense of self, a lack of any real emotions and self-awareness that define us as individuals. Those who don't strive for something better have now stolen the throne, have molded and shaped this world so they can live out in the open and become this new normal. It doesn't matter if you have no educated idea what you're talking about, just as long as it has enough key words that people can hear and fill in the blanks that relate to them and their dangerous ideals and agendas. I think it's time for this to stop while there is still time. We need more people who can ignore the virus of self-appointed righteousness and turn towards those who specialize in fields that we need to address. Specialize in fields. I highly recommend to anyone to go see a professional psychologist if you can afford it. Luckily in Australia you can get some free sessions with a mental health plan. But speaking to someone outside your circle and with someone who's trained to deal with mental illness can suggest techniques to help you cope and regain the reins of your life again. And you learn tools that are essential to life, because it only gets harder the longer you stay alive. And it's very easy to become cynical and disconnect yourself from reality and the virus of stupidity that seems to be infecting the world in such rapid succession. They don't want you self-aware or try to fix those parts of you that are emotionally broken. They want to keep you at that level or lower, so they themselves never have to strive to be anything more than what they already are. The greatest threat to their existence are those who feel the highs and lows, who feel affected by terrible news, those who feel joy with the rare occurrence that someone does them a kindness. I believe that some are still redeemable, and possibly have never been given the chance to know that there is a more peaceful way to exist that doesn't involve internal war within themselves and everyone around them. The first thing we can do is no longer tolerate the self-proclaimed inflated egos that walk this earth like gods among peasants. They feed on our attention and are crippled without it. Ignoring them is the only way to deflate them back down to an average size. Maybe then they will try and learn to come to terms with that nothing is perfect. We're all flawed, and it's a learning experience to balance our strengths and weaknesses to make ourselves a better person with what we were given. The second suggestion is being there for people who are struggling. If you can support them in any way, even in the smallest, you're not only helping that person out during troubled times, but restoring hope that there are still people left who care and want to pull you out of the fog of helplessness. I think thirdly, you should be mindful with giving people advice. And this is something I've been trying to do myself. I write these episodes as broadly as possible in hopes that only small sentences may apply to someone. But I'm not going to pretend that I have all the answers. I myself still suffer and fluctuate between being someone optimistic and thankful of the support around me, and at other times I am so deep in my own head that I can no longer see the real world around me, just the sludge of self-loathing and diminished sense of self. But everyone is different. We've all been born into this world at different times, and have got to this moment in completely different ways, with completely different experiences. There can never be one specific answer that can fix what is going on, but keeping an open mind and reading on others' experiences, perhaps even seeking professional help, can really make a difference. I don't recommend self-diagnosis. This should always be left up to those who spend years in medical school to actually learn about such things. And sure, there are always going to be someone who's not 100% right or not good at their job. But if you had to choose between someone who was underqualified and not a specialist in a specific field to someone who is, It seems like seeking professional help would be the only real logical answer. My fourth suggestion is starting something creative, a personal project, even if it's not really your thing. Sometimes an outlet is the best way of purging all those pain birds that are fluttering around inside your ribcage. Because I really think self-expression can be nothing but positive, even if it's something you do for yourself with no plans, with what to do with the final results. Sometimes letting your mind wander, creating something that is a jumbled resemblance of the things inside of you that have jagged edges, can be the perfect palette to utilize. It's the same concept that our dreams use when it paints pictures in our minds. Asking for help should not be something you should feel ashamed to do. I can't think of anyone who doesn't need support at some point in their life. This modern world is a hard place to navigate. The world is not black and white or good or evil. There's no heroes and villains. It's complex. It's purposely deceitful, and it's deceptive maze that is designed to keep you confused and disillusioned until you give up the fight. But there are still good people out there. People who have lived through troubled times themselves and now live to help others, who have studied and perfected their area of expertise because they just want to help others. These people go unnoticed, and few of them get the credit that they truly deserve. Their contributions are always behind the scenes, but their effect on people's lives are unquestionably miraculous. The selflessness of their contributions is astonishing, and it's a crime against humanity how unrewarded and unrespected they are compared to vapid pseudo-celebrities. I think we can all kind of be this person, even if it's just in the smallest contribution that is within our own abilities. Letting people know you are there for them, talking and not shaming them for not feeling their feelings, are small things we can do. In a long way, it helps them begin a healing process towards learning to cope and compartmentalize each individual problem so it's not so overwhelming to begin to heal. Mental health is becoming a little more well known in the public zeitgeist, but it still has this negative baggage of a weaker or a lesser person who just can't cope with simple things. And I think this is dreamed up by feeble humans who think strength can only be physical and achieved by a gym membership. Strength comes from developing an open mind, a passion for learning, an understanding and wanting to know more about yourself and where you fit into this world, and how you can make things better in the long term, and prepare yourself for all the changes that are ahead. It takes someone of immense strength to go against the grain and selflessly exist to improve yourself and apply your own experiences and help others that are experiencing similar road bumps in their lives. It's this kind of strength in someone who can hear the cries for help and stop what they're doing to help another person. It's strength in character, and it shows empathy, compassion for the fragile state of life and how much it can hurt at times. Why would anyone choose the alternative? Someone who just lives for themselves, who is selfish and vain, and lives only for self-pleasure and self-preservation. For some reason, this is what many strive to accomplish, and when they achieve it, it doesn't seem like it makes them any more happier. Many people become addicted to escaping and numbing the real world around them. When you reach the top and get everything you ever dreamed of, that we've been taught that is the most valuable things in life, you learn pretty quickly how it was all a lie and how shallow and empty the illusion of success really is. It's amazing how soon as you gain the public attention, this public will now turn against you, waiting for you to fail, say something stupid, reassure us all that they're just as vulnerable as everyone else. It's a strange way to look at things. We somehow separate anyone famous as some kind of superhuman and take comfort when they suffer the same kinds of problems we all do, with their failed relationships, maybe death in the family, illness, drug addiction, mental breakdowns, or wanting something more out of life than they've already achieved. There is no such thing as perfection. In fact, ingenuity comes from the failure of trying to accomplish something, or discovering the complete opposite is where the answer lies, and with the right set of eyes and mind, you can adapt and not see your work as a failure, but an unplanned success. If you're struggling right now, it's important that you seek help. No matter how self-aware you may think you are, you can't do this alone. There are still organizations that can help and offer support, and a simple Google search should be able to point you in the right direction. Problems do have solutions, and if you find the right people and the right kind of help, you may just get through this moment without too much turbulence. Thunderous, aggressive vibrations rattle through plaster walls, rise up into the dark night skies. Murmurs and inaudible mumbling bounces like rubber balls from the ceiling back down to the floor. Metal scrapes on concrete. Doors slam inwards and the whole foundation trembles with fear. The moon is cursed, and the stars only watch but cannot intervene. The shadows slip in and out of closed window blinds, while headlights expose the darker corners and then vanish like a bad magic trick. Gravity stands on its head, and we all slide like sand, and the world changes into something more dark and frightening. Time elapses onto itself. It shatters like glass and breaks into a million shards and stops altogether. Trees bend backwards to avoid the sprayback. It's now violence and static. Endless noise that keeps you awake. The fluctuating personality flickers from passive to rage, unbridled rage, a wild bull let loose on bloodthirsty crowds, race horses that trample its riders, the caged animal that breaks free and attacks its trapper. The pressure rises. The frustration reverberates, causing troubled thoughts to expand out and back in again like the evening tide. Blood turned red to black, flooded in sand and broken glass, broken TVs and torn furniture, profanity to gods who don't listen, who don't care, who don't want to help, who don't want to worry about those who are trying to sleep, trying to remember what it feels like to feel safe. Metal gates are pulled in to trap us like rats, and the wind changes direction, escapes through driveways, parking areas and over property lines. The silence is cut open like a surgeon, and the noise bleeds out. The pounding, the banging, the anger, the fury, the never-ending cries for help, to be noticed, to be heard, to be annoying to anyone who's trying to sleep. The wind dies down and the door slams shut, and the stillness and the silence creeps back in for the rest of the early morning. But the stillness can't rest, it's restless. Its emptiness is just waiting to be filled to the brim again. Without it, it just becomes a waiting game. If not if, it's when it'll all kick off again. And until then, the silence is just an excuse, abnormality, to absorb the missing noise that it longs to be filled with. This fury, frustration, and the inability to live peacefully and quietly with others. So that's it for another week. Thank you very much for listening to this episode, and my apologies for my voice. I've had this throat infection over the weekend. It was pretty bad yesterday. I could barely talk and just kind of slept. So sorry this episode's a day late. I'm doing the best I can, But if you like this podcast, if you like this episode, well, there is over 150 plus episodes completely free to download. You can have access to them right now just by subscribing, liking this episode. If you want to share this with your friends, that would be most excellent, using Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. There should be a button on the link that will do that all for you. If you've got less than 2 minutes free to do so, that'd be amazing. Just telling someone, recommending it with words to their face, perhaps over a coffee or something, would really help me out. If you know someone who likes podcasts and wants to listen to something slightly a little bit different from the mainstream. You can follow this podcast on Facebook and Twitter just by searching for Tales from the Mind Boat. It's pretty easy to do. Doing so lets me know that you support what I'm doing. You can follow me on Twitter at Nashtopia. You can follow my Instagram, Art Diary, at Trav Nash Draws Things. Theme music for the podcast composed by Tim Witt. You can listen to his music right now on SoundCloud just by searching for Tim Witt Sounds. You can also pick up his albums at Bandcamp. He's got 2 albums that you pay what you feel. They're both brilliant. I highly recommend them, and you can find them on Bandcamp right now. This episode was written, read, produced, edited, copied, and pasted, and all ambient music was composed by me, Trav Nash. So thanks again for listening. Again, sorry about this weird husky voice. It's not on purpose. This is not my sultry new wave podcast idea that I think will gain me more viewers. This is genuine illness. But thank you again for listening to this episode. I hope you have a good week. I hope you're doing well. I hope this podcast was something positive in your life. You have a good week. Until next Monday, stay safe. Peace.